Thank you guys so much. I love the first episode. It's kind of mean that that's all we got, but that's okay. I'm really looking forward to the rest of it. Thank you guys for your time. I know that you're going through a gauntlet of interviews right now, so I really appreciate it. First, give it to me straight, Neil. How hard am I going to cry in episode 6?
Well, if you're anything like me, you're gonna cry really hard. Yeah, no, it's super emotional. The actors left nothing on the table. They put it all out there. Um, yeah, I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but
That's all. I
get some
just
tissues ready.
Now, The Last of Us Part 2, the game, sparked some really intense conversations, I feel like, about revenge and loss and empathy. Did you see this adaptation as an opportunity to refine or reframe any of those ideas for a new audience?
No. Um, I love those conversations. I love how intense the conversations have been around Last of Us Part Two, even from the people that didn't agree with the choices the characters made, or even the choices we've made as creators. The fact that people are still talking about it 5 years later, I think should be telling about the story that we made. So for me, the changes come from the fact that we're adapting it to a different medium, the fact that we're collaborating. Hallie and I are now collaborating with another writer, Craig Mazin, who has his own ideas and choices he would want to bring into it. That's where the changes come from. That's where we get to really work extremely hard to honor what we did with Last of Us Part Two, what Naughty Dog created with Last of Us Part Two, and make sure that what we do in the TV lives up to it, because people have very high expectations for this thing. But as far as it refining or changing, that would make it seem like I have some regrets, and I have none.
Now, the game is split into very distinctive halves, but the show kind of weaves Ellie and Abby's stories more fluidly. How did you approach adapting that structure for TV, and what were the biggest storytelling challenges in making that shift?
Yeah, so in the game, again, there's certain constraints that the game, there's certain opportunities that the game affords you, and then constraints that you have to work with. What it affords you is when you're playing as a character, you empathize with them almost immediately. I don't know why that happens, but it happens time and time again. In season one, we saw it with, in game one, we saw it with Sarah. As soon as you played as Sarah, we found players cared for her enormously. In the show, we couldn't just do it one to one. We had to really expand on Sarah's story. You have to give it more context. You have to understand more of her relationship. That's how we were able to create this empathic connection, because we don't have the interactive element. Likewise with Abby, you're not playing as Abby. You're not opening the game surviving as her, fighting infected, having Joel come and unite with you. All this stuff, you don't get to do it that way. So we had to find another way to create this empathic connection. We have to bring in certain contexts that happen much later in the game to the front of the game, in order to again get you to understand why she's doing what she's doing, because we couldn't withhold that mystery like we could in the game. Likewise, there's something else that happens in the game, which is their upgrade trees. You're kind of defining their abilities, Ellie and Abby's abilities, as you're playing the game. We actually experimented with this when we were making the game. If you were to jump back and forth, it's so disruptive to the player, because you have a certain play style based on how you've upgraded the character, and now you got to switch it. Oh, wait, where was I? What did I do? Oh, right, this is a whole other character. Okay, and so we were very we picked and chose those moments very carefully and very deliberately because of gameplay mechanics. We don't have those constraints right now, so we have to rethink, reinterrogate that structure. Now, there's certain structural things that remain the same, but certain that have changed for these reasons.
I think that's super fascinating. Neil, one thing I wanted to bring up was that you've previously mentioned that you had a concept or an outline for The Last of Us Part 3, but recently you said fans shouldn't bet on a Part 3. I'd love to know what changed and what would need to happen for a third game to move forward.
What changed? Well, we all get older.
Yeah.
We have limited time of the things that we work on. Look, here's how I've always approached things. I never take my career for granted. Every project I treat like it's my last one.
Mm-hmm.
And it started all the way back, and this is when I started directing. On Last of Us 1, I didn't know if I would get another chance at that role again. So therefore, I was uncompromising. It had to be like my way or the highway. I was very unpleasant to work with probably at that time. But the story was structured in such a way that I had a definitive ending, because I didn't know if I could come back for a sequel or ever visit that world again. And it became wildly successful. I got to do it again. I got to work on Uncharted 4. I approached that story the same exact way. It had to have a definitive ending. Last of Us 2, I'm like, okay, we're in a lucky position where we don't even have to make a sequel if we don't want to. That's how much Sony trusts Naughty Dog because of how successful we've been. But we had an idea that we felt passionate about. It was good enough idea to spend years on it. Halley came on board. We worked on the story, and it felt like, okay, that story's come full circle. There's a definitive ending for this moment in time. Right now, I'm working on finishing this season. Then next, if we get renewed, if enough people watch this season, we have the next season to work on because we know this adaptation goes beyond a single season. And back at Naughty Dog, we're now working on Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet, which is something we've been working for many years. That has taken up all of our time. I am treating these projects like it's the last thing I will ever work on. So my assumption is they will be no more. If stars align and everything comes into place, who knows what will happen.
Well, so to your point, considering how long it does take to make a video game, have you and Craig had conversations about, repurposing that outline for part 3 for television instead if the opportunity presented itself?
There's no secret outline. When we broke this season, we worked all the way to the end of the story because Craig and I, and Halley's the same way, we must have an ending in mind, or I don't know how to make decisions otherwise, because every time we interrogate a moment, a scene, a sequence, we have a bunch of options. How do you pick which one you should go with? Is it the coolest one? No. It's got to be the one that gets you closest to the vision that works towards that eventual ending. We've already had that when we broke this season because we knew this story was bigger. That's the ending we're working towards.
Just for fun, last question, guys. What video game have you each sunk the most time into, and how many hours are we talking?
Oh God. Okay. Yeah.
And why is it Balatro?
Oh, for you, definitely Balatro. Yeah. I don't know how many hours do you think you have on Balatro?
Oh, I played through all of Balatro twice. Once on the Steam Deck and then again on my iPhone. So easily 200 hours.
Yeah. Mine would be Fortnite. It's my stress reliever, and I've been playing it since pre-COVID. I do like two or three rounds a day to wind down. So I mean I got to be rounding 1,000 hours on it, just on the PlayStation.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed at how many hours I put into Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah.
Yeah, over 1,000, easy.